There is a phrase that former FBI agents use when a case is moving fast toward resolution. Not warm, not promising, not progressing, red hot. And today, 54 days after Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home in the dead of night, a former FBI agent used exactly those words about this investigation: red hot. At the same time, the investigation has quietly gone dark. No new press conferences, no new public evidence releases, no new statements from Sheriff Nanos beyond what he has already said. Just silence. And in the world of criminal investigation, silence from law enforcement when a case is described as red hot is not the silence of a stalled investigation. It is the silence of an investigation that has moved into a phase where talking publicly would compromise everything. It is the silence of people who are getting close enough that they cannot afford to let the target know. And then, on top of all of that, Savannah Guthrie made a move this week that a former FBI agent described as deliberate, calculated, specifically designed not for the national media, but for one specific audience. And when you understand exactly who that audience is and why Savannah chose a local Tucson television station instead of her own national platform to deliver her message, everything about this case snaps into focus in a way that it never has before. Today is day 54. The case is red hot, the investigation has gone dark, and somewhere in Tucson, someone is watching. And today, Savannah spoke directly to them. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 54 days. She is 84 years old. She requires daily heart medication. Her pacemaker is still transmitting somewhere in the world. And today, on day 54, 3 separate developments have emerged simultaneously that together paint the most complete and most hopeful picture of where this investigation actually stands right now. Not where the public thinks it stands, not where the media is reporting it stands, where it actually stands. The red-hot revelation, the deliberate move, and the hidden intent that a former FBI agent decoded in Savannah's most recent statement. Today, we go places that no other channel has gone, and by the end of this episode, I believe you will understand this case and where it is heading in a way you have not before. First question for you right now. When you heard a former FBI agent describe this case as red hot while the investigation appears to have gone dark, what did that tell you? Does the silence make you more hopeful or more worried? Drop your answer in the comments. March 23rd, March 26th, 2026, Day 51 to Day 54, Tucson, Arizona. Here is everything we now know and what every single detail means. Development 1. The case is red hot. Former FBI agent Jason Pack, speaking exclusively to Page 6, made a statement that should be the headline of every news outlet covering this case today. He described the Nancy Guthrie investigation as red hot. Not his exact words. Let us be precise. Pack said that while law enforcement appears to have gone silent, that does not mean the case has stalled. He explained specifically, investigators going dark is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of focus. When investigators stop talking to the media, it is because they are talking to each other, because they are moving towards something, because they have reached the phase of an investigation where public statements create more risk than benefit. The tip line dropping from thousands of calls to dozens is not a sign that nobody cares. It is a sign that investigators have enough intelligence that they no longer need the volume. They need the specific. And the specific, according to every insider source covering this case, exists. The DNA is being analyzed. The genealogy is running. The digital evidence is being processed. The January 11th confirmation from the FBI's own equipment analysis is being developed. The case is red hot. The silence is not absence, it is concentration. Development 2. Savannah's deliberate move. Former FBI agent Jason Pack decoded Savannah's most recent public statement in a way that changes everything about how it should be understood. He told Page 6 that Savannah's message was aimed directly at residents of Tucson and southern Arizona, And then he said something that stopped me completely. The family chose a local television station, not a national platform. That is not an accident. Think about what that means. Savannah Guthrie is one of the most recognizable faces on American morning television. She has instant access to NBC's national broadcast reach, one of the largest media platforms in the world. If she wanted maximum national exposure for her mother's case, she could have gone on Today. She could have done a primetime NBC special. She could have posted exclusively to her Instagram account with its millions of followers. Instead, she chose a local Tucson television station, a station whose primary audience is the people who live in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, the people who drive past Nancy's neighborhood every day, the people who might have a dash cam recording from January 11th, the people who might remember a face. Pack explained it precisely. NBC and its platforms would likely have aired it if asked. They targeted their own neighborhood. That tells you they believe someone local has information, or more likely, someone local has not checked their cameras yet because they assumed somebody else already did. Someone local, someone who has not checked their cameras yet because they assumed somebody else already did. That is the specific audience Savannah was speaking to, not the 40 million people who follow the national news cycle, the specific neighbor on the specific street in the specific neighborhood who has a Ring camera or a dash cam or a backyard motion sensor that captured something on January 11th and hasn't thought to check it because they assumed it was already covered. Savannah's deliberate move was not an emotional appeal. It was a forensic targeting decision, and it came, according to multiple sources, directly from the investigators who briefed the family on exactly what kind of evidence they still need. Development 3. The FBI confirmed January 11th independently. Sheriff Nanos this week made his most significant statement about the January 11th date since the Google retraction. He told Cold News directly, "We do believe that something occurred on January 11th, and that's with the FBI's analysis of the equipment and digital stuff they've done." The FBI's analysis of the equipment and digital material, not Google's metadata, not a single company's unverified assessment. The FBI's own forensic analysis of the digital evidence collected from Nancy's property has independently confirmed, or at least strongly supported, that something significant occurred on January 11th. The Google retraction, the bombshell from the last episode, does not eliminate January 11th. It eliminates Google as the source. The FBI itself has now taken over as the source, and the FBI's analysis of equipment and digital material is not a possibility. It is not a retractable assessment. It is forensic evidence, processed by the most sophisticated digital forensics operation in the world. Development 4. The suspect's face has not been captured. Sheriff Nanos this week confirmed that the suspect's face has not been captured in any of the surveillance videos reviewed so far, including from the January 11th reconnaissance visit. This is a significant clarification. The canvass of the neighborhood asking for January 11th footage was based on the hope that the suspect, who appears without his mask in the no backpack image, might have been captured more clearly on a neighboring camera. That hope has not yet been realized. His face remains unconfirmed in any footage. But, and this is the critical detail, the FBI's digital analysis confirms something happened on January 11th, regardless of whether his face was captured. The behavioral evidence exists even without the facial identification, and forensic genealogy does not require a face. It requires DNA, and the DNA, being analyzed in Florida right now, is the path to the name. Development 5. Federal prosecutors join the investigation. Several people were seen walking around Nancy Guthrie's property, the most activity seen at the residence in days. Federal prosecutors, accompanied by FBI special agents, visited the home. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Phoenix confirmed federal prosecutors traditionally work with all levels of law enforcement and have done so throughout this investigation, adding, "They will go anywhere, do anything, and persevere always to find her."
Federal prosecutors do not visit crime scenes to be supportive. They visit crime scenes because they are building a case, because they believe charges are coming, because they need to see the evidence in context, because an arrest and a prosecution is being prepared. Federal prosecutors at Nancy Guthrie's home is not a routine investigative step. It is a pre-prosecution step, and pre-prosecution steps happen when investigators believe they know who did it and are preparing to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Now here is the detail that connects every single one of these 5 developments and that I have not seen any outlet properly explain. The case has gone dark. The investigation is described as red hot. Savannah made a deliberate forensic targeting move. The FBI independently confirmed January 11th. Federal prosecutors visited the